Well, I think we'll get started just because I'm thinking Camille's going to call in just a minute. Well, welcome everyone to today's school nutrition update and chat. If you do have questions, please just put them in the chat or unmute yourself. You know, the purpose of this, as you know, is just to answer your questions, network with your peers, and the focus has been on back to school meal service, so we'll continue that today. If you don't mind putting your name, school name, and one email in the chat box, and we'll make sure we send you a follow-up message with the PowerPoint and any information, websites or anything that we have from today's call. If you can mute yourself if you're not speaking, that would be great. Okay, it looks like I need to let somebody in. Hold on. Okay. Oh, sorry about this, guys. I've let everybody in. Camille, can you hear me?
Katie, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Awesome.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Okay, well, Camille, we'll turn it over to you to give any updates. Camille is the Assistant Director with School Nutrition, and I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, everyone. This is Camille Biazzo, and I have a quick update on professional standards training and then also some waivers for the fall. So to start out with training, so because of COVID, we are planning on doing most of our training, as far as we know, into the future virtually. And because of that, we are interested in hearing about what you would like for your training and in what platform. So Katie has pulled up an image of our website. So if you go to the professional standards page of our website, you'll see that box that you can click on, and when you click on it, it'll bring you to a brief survey. And so we're asking, what topics are you interested in? What's the easiest way for you to watch a training? What is the best time frame for you to listen to a live training? So those are all the things we're asking you to do before the fall, if you are able to. We know you're really busy, but we'd love to get your feedback to help us create trainings that are helpful for you. And then second, we did receive some extensions on nationwide waivers into the fall. We just heard today, so you'll be getting an official announcement from Christine Emerson either this afternoon or tomorrow, but I wanted to give you the first notification. So in all of these waivers are related to the National School Lunch Program and School Breakfast Program, not summer. So think about normal operations, school breakfast program, National School Lunch Program. So the most important one I think that you'll want to know about is the non-congregate feeding and meal service time flexibilities are going to be extended through the whole school year. So that means you can do grab-and-go meals all year if you want for students that are remote. And so if you want to send meals home with the kids, you can do that. And then you're still allowed, so the other one that got extended was the parent and guardian pickup for meals for children. So parents can come to the school to pick up the lunches or breakfast on behalf of children. So that also got extended. We also got an extension on meal pattern flexibility. So if market-related and procurement-related things persist into the school year and you can't actually buy things, let's say any grain at all, so a whole component, you can apply through our office to not serve that grain. I don't even think we've had anybody need to use that, but it's nice to know we have that in case something happens and our supply is changing. And then the newest waiver we received, this is not an extension, this is a new one. It's to allow offer versus serve flexibility for high school. I know a lot of you were concerned about meeting that requirement at your high schools if you're doing grab and go, and so this allows you to not do offer versus serve at the high school if you're sending meals home or serving remote students. So this is just the really quick overview of the extensions on these waivers. More information to come. Those of you that operated the summer food service program during unanticipated school closures, most of you probably remember completing a survey, opting into a lot of these waivers. We'll likely have to have you report if you are opting into these for the fall as well. We don't know what that'll look like yet, but I just wanted to give you a heads up that these did get extended into the school year and more information will be coming. I think that's all I have, Katie. Back to you.
Thank you, Camille. Does anybody have questions for Camille about these waivers or any other? I know Joyce had a question on, will administrative reviews be happening next year? Do you have an answer for that also, Camille?
Sure. So we still have to follow the regular review requirements and conduct administrative reviews. Currently, the off-site desk audit type reviews, that waiver is only until the end of the summer. Moving into fall, we are planning on requesting an off-site monitoring waiver. So we will do the reviews. They could perhaps look different though, depending on travel regulations and if people want people coming to their schools or not. So the tentative plan right now is you will still have a review if you're scheduled for review. It just may be an off-site review where we don't come to your school.
And then it looks like Kathy Martin from Corvallis had a question on meal pattern waivers possibly. Can you address that?
Sure. So one of the waivers that was extended is the meal pattern waiver. But I believe this waiver is for if you cannot meet the meal pattern, which is what I described earlier, based on what's available to you when you're trying to buy food. Was there a specific question with the meal pattern or a specific component that there were questions about?
Let me see here. Oops. Nothing on meal patterns. Okay, all the vegetable subgroups are my concern with serving style changes, like with not having a salad bar or, you know, a food bar or choices.
Okay, that does make it more clear. So this waiver is more for specific, let's see, like it's meant to be more specific than just subgroups. However, that is a really good question, and I know other people are asking that same question because we know a lot of you meet that vegetable subgroup category through salad bars. And if you're not able to locally, if your sanitarian doesn't want you to be serving a salad bar, that will create additional challenges. So I'm making a note about that. That might be a state flexibility we'll have to ask for in addition to these.
Okay, so more information will come on that?
Yeah, yep, so nothing exists for that currently that I know of.
What about the offer versus serve? You said in the high school that you don't have to follow it, but what if you are an offer versus serve school in your elementary?
So the federal requirement is that you must do offer versus serve at the high school level. So that's where the waiver comes in. It's saying you don't have to. So at the lower grades, it's your choice So you have the authority to change that on your agreement for your younger grade to say, we're not doing offer versus serve.
So we could save it, or excuse me, we could change it for the upcoming year only.
For your K through 8 level students, you can change that at any time, but your high school one, this waiver is only for the upcoming year, correct?
Okay, and that, so if you're, will that relate to milk at all? Because do you still have to serve milk options, or can you just go to one milk?
So let's see, you still have to offer more than one milk fat type variety under offer versus serve. I'm gonna have to read through this a little bit more closely to figure out. I think you're asking if they have to have a variety of milk fats available. Let me get back to you on the specifics on that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, a couple other questions were, what about fruit and vegetable snack for elementary? And Joyce at Hinsdale is wondering if that's the fresh fruit and vegetable snack program. Will that continue, I guess, is maybe her question. Is that your question, Joyce?
If it is, I can tell you that where we're at with the process of the FFVP. So Caroline Olson is our program manager for that, and she invited everybody who is eligible based on having a 50% free and reduced percentage as of last year. So if you are eligible based on that, it should be popping up in your annual school nutrition agreement. The application for FFVP, you should see that. And then we're all behind, and the USDA is also behind, and normally they send out the funding memo so we know how much money we have for the fresh fruit and vegetable program earlier, but it's coming out later this year. So if you were on the program last year and you didn't see an invite, it doesn't mean for sure you're not on the program. It just means we have to wait till we get that funding memo to invite everyone. If you're slightly below 50%, sometimes we can invite you. It just depends on how much money we get. So if you have specific questions on why you're not seeing an application for the FFVP and you thought you would, please contact Caroline. She'll have more information for you.
Okay, another question is also wondering about any additional funding to support more staff. If there's funding, I know we've talked about the CARES money or whatever it's called that school districts are getting about COVID. I don't know if that's the kind of funding you're wondering about, Kathy, or if any more funding is coming from USDA.
Kathy, if you want to clarify that further, but I would just echo what Katie's saying. So school districts are receiving that CARES Act funding, and the memo lists all the options you can use that funding for. So that is a possibility. I would ask your school district if that's something you can use the money for. I have not heard of additional funding coming from USDA to support more staff.
Okay, it doesn't look like there's any more questions in the chat. Does anybody have a question for Camille on any of this regulation information or waivers? Camille, did you have anything on the USDA foods or waiver, or is that not been confirmed yet?
Is Pam on the line?
Let's see if she is.
No, she's tied up right now, so she's not on the line.
Okay. So the USDA did come out with another USDA foods waiver, and I believe we opted into that, and it has to do with the funding formula. I know there were questions about how that's going to work since so many people switched to the summer program. And so I'll wait for Pam to send out that notification to everybody, but we did opt into a USDA foods waiver that will help with your future entitlement dollars.
For not next year, but the following year, correct?
Correct, yep. I know we're thinking so far ahead.
Okay. Okay. There's one more question, it looks like right now. And any information about meal prices from USDA? Like, will meal prices, is USDA giving any guidance on meal prices for next year? Or changing?
I do not have any other information on meal prices.
And the reimbursement level for meals has already come out, or is that also waiting? Is that not out yet?
I'm not positive. I don't think they're out yet. I should double check on that.
So the reimbursement would be what schools would get per meal, but then it sounds like that will be forthcoming, and then it doesn't sound like USDA is giving any guidance on meal prices. I'm assuming, Kathy, you're talking about what your school would charge, and I think that's where if meal costs are going up, you would have justification to increase your price if you needed to, right? Okay, so Camille, do you want, you're not on the phone, or are you on the computer? You can see these slides?
I can see them, yeah.
So did you want to introduce the back to school meal checklists that are on your website now? And then Molly can go over the one that we were planning on going over today. Did you want to say anything about, because you were on the committee, and I mean, I didn't know if you wanted to introduce these before Molly goes over the one that.
Sure, I can do a brief introduction. So if you are headed on our website, you would go to that food safety and special diets page, and this is what it looks like when you're on there. Team Nutrition worked a lot on coming up with this back to school meal service guidance. And the OPI is also working on putting out a complete document on school reentry and what considerations schools should have when they're thinking about the options. And our piece of that is, what are the considerations for meal service, and having different options and scenarios to help guide you. So what Molly is going to go through, I believe, is some of these documents and the planning checklist, just to give you things to think about. It's meant to be considerations, it's not requirements. It's to help you plan for back to school and to think about everything that might be different in the context of your district. So with that, I think it's up to you, Molly, now to go through this.
Thank you, Camille. Okay, so we have talked about a couple of the scenarios in previous chats, and we really tried to develop this back to school guidance in the same kind of format that the OPI reentry for schools is based on. And they have different reentry scenarios for schools that are considered remote or in person or a blended scenario. So we had good discussion about grab and go or remote meal service. Last week we had great discussion on in-person scenario. We're calling it 2A, meals delivered to the classroom and eaten in the classroom. And this week we thought we would talk about students, the scenario where students would pick up a meal in the cafeteria and then return to their classroom to eat that meal. So let me see if I can share my screen with you. And can you see this document with the red apples on it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so this is the scenario we thought we would be talking about today. And like Camille said, it's not an all-inclusive list. It's just kind of a idea generator or a planning consideration checklist to just help you plan ahead and thinking about getting back to serving meals in school in the fall. A lot of these bullet points are based on the School Nutrition Association's COVID-19's thought starters on reopening schools. So that is hyperlinked in this document. If you haven't looked at it, I would encourage you to do so. It has some really great information. One of the topics that they talk about in this Thought Starters resource is how important it is to be talking now with your school administrators, your back to school planning team, and really importantly, your registered sanitarian in your county. Because based on the size of your school and the size of your operation, you might find your meal service is radically different, or you might find your meal service is pretty similar to what it was before COVID-19 got on the scene. So it's really important, if you haven't talked to your sanitarian yet, please do that. I think he or she can work with you to develop a plan that works well for you and also approve that plan. So when you're talking to your administrator or your school board, you can say, I've already talked to the sanitarian, he's approved this plan, and we're ready to go with it. Okay, with that being said, I'll jump right in here. And I don't have, let me see if I can pull up the chat, or if there's a question, just stop me, anyone, and jump in with a written question or an audio question.
We'll watch the chat for you, Molly.
Okay. Okay, so thank you, Katie. Thinking about, this would be a scenario in which students would come to your lunchroom to pick up their meal, and they would return to their classroom to eat that meal. So last week we showed this short YouTube video that really talked maybe about the more positive aspects of eating lunch in the classroom. And if you have not watched that video, I would encourage you to do so. It really just helps us view it maybe in a different light or more positive manner, in that students could maybe have more time to eat. They might be eating in a maybe more relaxed environment if they're in their classroom with 20 kids versus being in a cafeteria with 75 kids. So that's something to consider. Another thing to consider, and Ramona from Fairfield shared this last week, think about what age students you have that would be coming to your cafeteria and then carrying a meal back to the classroom. So how far away is the cafeteria from your classrooms? Would these students need to travel up and down stairs, or do you have elevators? How much time will be added to your meal periods to accommodate different small groups of students traveling to and from the cafeteria and their classrooms? And I think in Fairfield, Ramona said that they would be having their younger students, their K first graders, space out in the cafeteria and eat in there, while they would have their older students taking their trays back to their classroom. And think about how much easier it would be for an older student to navigate carrying a tray without spilling it, getting it back to their classroom. Really important to think about discussing the bell schedule with your principal or your administrator to make sure that students have enough time to get to the cafeteria, then back to their classroom to eat their meal. So thinking about what the schedule for lunch in the classroom will be and how the current schedule may change. It's also an opportunity to ask, will recess be scheduled before or after lunch? And if it would make your meal delivery or your meal service easier to have a staggered schedule, it might be an opportunity that half of your students would be out having recess while you're feeding the other half, and then they switch. So that's a a consideration. We've talked a lot about sufficient meal packaging supplies. So whether you're considering like a covered tray system or an Oliver film system over trays, really thinking about how you're going to be packaging those meals, and do you have enough supplies on hand? Are you going to go for disposable mostly items, or would you use reusable trays? And someone asked the most simple question at the end of our discussion last week that I hadn't even thought of is, I don't remember who asked it, but they said, has anybody thought about silverware? What are you going to do about silverware? Are you sending reusable silverware that's going to come back that you'll run through your dishwasher, or are you doing all disposable? So that's something to think about. It's really important with meal service. We all will be using some kind of silverware. Thinking about how you'll get anything back to your cafeteria dish room. So will you provide a bus tub for classrooms to use, or would you have a cart there where they will stack everything on? If you are a school that has 2 different levels and you don't want kids carrying trays up and down stairs, could you establish points of service from mobile kiosks, or using your existing equipment like a salad bar or maybe a portable cart? Could you have the students come to a established point of service to come get that meal without having to come all the way to the cafeteria? And if you're going to do that, what kind of staff would you need? Would you need electrical outlets? And you'd need to have a counting and claiming system in place. Do you have existing equipment which can be used in an efficient way, such as salad bars? Or do you have insulated totes or different things that you were using for breakfast in the classroom that you could also use for lunch in the classroom? So thinking about that. If you do need equipment, I think No Kid Hungry will have another grant opportunity open for schools to apply for grants for equipment. And I think that Jenny Martini is on. So before our call adjourns, Jenny will turn the mic over to you to share any information about that. Thinking about, we've always thought that students washing their hands before meals is really important, but it's really important now. So if students are coming to the cafeteria to get their meal, thinking about where and how they will wash their hands before they get their meal. And will they need to clean and sanitize their desks before they sit back down and eat those meals? And I'm not sure if masks are going to be required for students or not, but if they are, students will need to know how to take off their masks safely, put them back on safely, and where will they store those masks during their meal service. Schools were doing so great with their share tables. So if you're under this scenario now, think about how you could still minimize food waste in this model by allowing students to take any shelf-stable food items home with them. Could they place them in their backpacks, like a package of graham crackers or a whole fresh apple? Could they put those in their desk or in their backpack to take home with them at the end of the school day? Because we know we can't put them in a share table to come back to the cafeteria. And we certainly don't want them just to be throwing those kind of shelf-stable, fresh, whole fruit items away. So talk to your sanitarian about how you can have a modified share table and that students can just take that food home with them. Thinking about menu considerations, we talked a little bit about packaging. So if you're able to still cook your meals from scratch as much as possible, I think that's ideal. But we also know that things are crazy and that you guys are planning your menus really based on the regulations and how things are going to be, like where the rubber hits the road. So if you're doing more packaged things that maybe fit well in a paper bag, that's fine. If you know you're going to do the Oliver tray sealing system or covered tray, you could really do your own, your regular menus. So your meal service delivery will really drive what your menu looks like. And then also thinking about students transporting those meals. So you probably don't want to do a lot of soup or a lot of bowls that spill easy. And then thinking about providing trays large enough to hold the entire meal. So if they can put their food and their milk on the tray, that would be ideal. Or if the tray has a little cover on it that they can set the milk and the silverware on top. So thinking about helping kids transport those meals easily. Thinking about offer versus serve. If they're coming to your cafeteria, that is great because it allows you then the chance to let them go through the line and choose at least the fruit or vegetable that they'd like on their tray. So they wouldn't be spooning it out themselves from the salad bar, and they wouldn't be using any like self spoons on the service line, but they could point to what they'd like or tell your staff what they would like, and then you can spoon it onto their tray for them. So I think that's one great thing about getting kids in the cafeteria is then they have a choice, and then that will decrease food waste as well. Kathy Martin asked that good question that's on everybody's mind is how am I going to meet the minimum servings of the vegetable subgroups if I don't have my salad bar that had all the choices on it? So one possibility is you could consider offering entree salads to meet the meal standards, and that way you could get in your dark green vegetables, your red orange. They're pretty easy to meet with spaghetti, salsa, chili, things like that. So I think maybe the more challenging items will be your dark green and your legumes. So the other thing to think about, if they're coming through your line and they have the choice, it doesn't mean that you feed 100 students 100 scoops of refried beans. It means that you have a little pan of refried beans that looks delicious on your line, and then students have the choice. And as long as you're offering that choice as they come through, you have met then the meal pattern requirement because that choice has been offered. So does that make sense? Okay, if anybody has a question about that or a tip about that, feel free to jump in. And then if you can think about staggering groups of students into the cafeteria for meal pickup, that will allow you not to have 25 or 30 students lined up right toe to toe for their tray. So you'll have them coming in a staggered groups of smaller students. That would still allow you to do some batch cooking. And if most of them are going through the line, you can really be able to do more accurate forecasting and efficient production because they'll be making choices and you'll kind of get an idea of what they're choosing. So as always, developing a system to prepare and distribute meals safely. You guys are excellent at that. Just think about how you'll do that, taking into account social and physical distancing. And Deb Jones has always said that this has been a great learning opportunity to think about having emergency preparedness on our minds so that we have a backup plan in place. What are your staffing needs for this meal service? I think you're going to need more staff for this meal service because without a salad bar or any self-serve bars, you'll need staff to help serve students if they're making a choice through the line. Students won't be like grabbing a tray off of a big stack of tray. They won't grab their own silverware. So think about your staff will really be handling all meal setup and service. And then really to follow food safety procedures in the cafeteria. I'm thinking about maybe installing wall-mounted hand sanitizer dispensers right at the entrance to your lunchroom. In areas where physical distancing is hard to manage, like through your service line, you might need to install extra plexiglass shields along your service line or at your cashier station. Enhanced cleaning and disinfecting practices will be followed for any like high touch or high traffic areas. Use decals on your floors to indicate the recommended social distances in the cafeteria. Think about how you will disinfect the service line and then tables in between each group of students. And at this point in time, self-serve food bars, salad bars, or milk dispensers are not recommended. So I think it'd be really good idea to kind of get a plan in place and run it by your sanitarian so that everything is, so you're feeling good about it and that they have approved it as you are looking into fall. We took this school meal service procedures during a COVID-19 pandemic from Kansas, and we tried to put in as much guidance as we could on handling food safely in a pandemic. And if you haven't had a chance to look through this yet, please do. When we talk about enhanced cleaning and sanitizing procedures, that means more out in your lunchroom where students are sitting. You guys are already cleaning and sanitizing just fine in the back of the house, so where you're preparing the food, and in your service area. So don't be like using twice as much bleach as you used to on your food prep table. Continue to clean and sanitize in your food prep areas as you have before. But think about doing a little enhanced cleaning and sanitizing out in your common areas. So this resource is available to you as well. Okay, I'll hand the floor back over. Our time is going really fast today.
Well, thank you, Molly. That was a lot of information I know to swallow, especially in the afternoon. But are there questions or comments? I know, is anybody thinking of doing this service, cafeteria service with classroom dining, or are you not sure yet? Anybody thinking of going this way? Okay. Well, I know somebody asked where to find these things, so I thought maybe we should go over where to find them, and we could also show the flow chart. Molly, do you want to go to the website, or do you want to give it back to me? I don't know if I can share my screen yet. Okay, Molly's doing that. Molly? If you're on, I think you're on mute if you're talking. Oh, there it is.
Okay, thank you. Okay, can you see this now? It's a school nutrition programs website.
Yes.
Okay, so on the school nutrition programs website, you would just scroll down to the food safety and special diets section. And on the food safety and special diet section, all of these things, the scenarios, the planning checklist, and school meal procedures are all listed right here. So it's under back to school meal service. And the first thing is just this little flow chart of a scenarios that you may be looking at for fall. So like we said, that could be remote meals, all your meals are served grab and go, or it could be in-person delivery. So that means you would have some students in the school and you would be serving them either in the classroom, or students might be coming to the cafeteria to get their meal and taking it back to the classroom. Or scenario 2C would be pretty much standard meal service. Students would come to the cafeteria and eat their meal in the cafeteria, which would be wonderful. And then some schools, it's very possible that you might be looking at the scenario number 3, which is a blended scenario. You could have some students being served grab and go meals if they're doing distance learning. And at the same time, you could have part of your students in your school building receiving meals at school. So I haven't really heard, and I'm not sure if you guys have heard yet exactly how your schools are going to return with all of the grades, if they'll have some grades coming 2 or 3 days a week and alternating then with remote learning. I guess time will tell. So these are the different scenarios that we thought could be possible for you. And from those scenarios, then there is a checklist for each one. So here's a checklist for the remote. Here's a checklist for the classroom delivery and classroom dining. So we've talked about almost all of them. Next week, we'll talk about standard meal service. So when your students are coming to the cafeteria and staying in the cafeteria for their meal. And if this is one of the scenarios that you know you're going to do, feel free to look at this and go through it even before next week. We had such good ideas last time. So if you know what you're going to be doing and you feel comfortable sharing it, please feel free to do that, because you guys are really the experts on this. That we really feel like we're just the moderators to get conversation going, but we can all learn from all of you. So this is where they're at, and you just click on them and they pull up, and then you can look at them, print them, download them.
Thank you, Molly, for going over that. There was some discussion in the chat. One question is, can we deliver a container of silverware, napkins, and maybe the milk to the classrooms before lunch starts, so it's easier for the kids? And Deb Jones from OPI, responded that this is tricky, as we are trying to aim for limited contact, or you've probably heard no contact on all surfaces of service and food items. But that's where I think asking your sanitarian, going over, I think Ramona, you even reported back last week to us that you did get conversation with your sanitarian on what system you're thinking of, and he approved it. So I think that's where making sure that asking your sanitarian this question. Kathy Martin from Corvallis is commented that she thinks they will be serving in the cafeteria. The school and the health department recognize the sanitation issues with eating in the classroom, such as, the carpet, touch points, in addition to just having the students want a break that's needed for the teaching staff and probably the students to go out of the classroom. So thanks for sharing that, Kathy. One concern that Kathy brought up that I'm sure many of you are thinking is that having a PIN pad that the students enter their PIN number as each student enters their own, looking into a barcode scanner so that they don't have to touch the PIN pad, sort of when you pay for something with your debit card, you know how you're touching that. Are there any other ideas for addressing, point of service from you all? Deb Jones telling the students, you know, some students will have a number and they memorize it and they tell the staff. So that's a great idea. Are there any other ideas for, you know, touchless point of service? Erin Turner from OPI has agrees that looking into a barcode scanner is a great idea. And she knows that Infinite Campus offers that, or to have cashiers write pin pads after each scan with a sanitizing swab. That might be hard to do with the students, but that's a really good suggestion for keeping it sanitized.
Katie, then the chat box from Shelley, it said, we just purchased a barcode and plan on removing the touchpad.
Great. Shelley, do you remember how much it was cost? I don't know if people would want to know how much it cost, or did you know?
It was $150.
Okay. As we talk about equipment, Jenny Martini from No Kid Hungry, did you want to remind people about the equipment grant in case that's something they could use that money, that grant for? Jenny, I see you unmuted yourself. Can you might be muted. I don't know still.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I don't know what happened. Yeah, so the No Kid Hungry grants, obviously in the past, in the fall, we've always offered breakfast after the bell grants to help with starting or expanding a breakfast program. We're gonna offer that same thing in the fall. Usually those come out in sometime in August. The thing we're hoping for this year that we're waiting to hear on from our national level is whether or not we can have more flexibility in those grants. And we think that that's definitely going to happen. And that would mean that there's potential for grant money to not only go to breakfast after the bell needs specifically, but maybe like lunch expansion or something else with the school lunch program. So our grants definitely can do equipment needs, like Katie said, if that's like tote bags or something like that. But we've also used grant funds before to help schools with technology stuff, which could be like the barcode scanners that you guys are talking.
Jenny, are you still there? Something happened. Well, it sounds like I don't know where she went, but any questions on the equipment for No Kid Hungry? I know she said Danielle Anderson is the person that is doing it. We can try to put Anderson's email in the chat box and then the follow-up email. Okay, are there any other questions in the chat? Kathy Martin had a question. The 20 minutes students get to serve and eat is also a concern. There are not enough minutes in the day, as we are all looking and used for, there are not enough minutes in the day. As we are all in this together, thanks for all the support and helping us brainstorm ideas. Yeah, I think people, I mean, just like you know, the world is not the same now. So I'm hoping that school administrators will understand that meal service is going to not look the same and that there might need to be some time or adjustments with the schedule. And Jenny said her internet has been sketchy. So to summarize, you can use grant funds for equipment, technology, and some limited staff needs as well. So that's good news. So we will make sure we put Danielle Anderson's email from No Kid Hungry in the follow-up message so you can contact her about this grant funding. Okay, Erin, you're wondering when they're available. I'm sure that Jenny will probably respond in the chat box, hopefully. Okay. And before we close, I did want to just go over a few things. As you know, you might have heard this. This is brand new guidance. If you can see the slide called Food and Coronavirus. This is new guidance from CDC that just went out up on their website, at this website down here on Friday. Because I know you've probably heard, maybe you've been concerned about food and coronavirus. And they did just reiterate on their website that the risk of getting coronavirus from food, treated drinking water, or food packaging is very low. And so basically the biggest thing is to, again, follow really good food safety practices like washing hands, wiping down food service, contact surfaces, just like you guys all know, since you're trained in food safety, and there is very little chance for coronavirus to be spread through food. So if some of your parents or your staff are concerned about this, this is some new guidance that you can refer them to. The next thing I wanted to go over is, just because I know it's probably on your minds, I know it's on our minds, is that we see that our numbers are going up. So I guess I felt like it was worthy enough to just review again what we all need to do to help stop the spread of the coronavirus. Fortunately, we've heard that, some food service programs have, people are around the nation are getting COVID. And so it can obviously affect your meal service if you or your staff are exposed or get coronavirus and you have to shut down. So you may, like Deb has encouraged us in the past, be looking at what would happen if somebody was exposed to coronavirus in your food service program. What would you do? Do you as far as a backup plan? So you may, want to talk to community partners about, if we had to shut down our organization, would the food bank be able to serve the summer meals? Or just have a plan for the fall, thinking about what would you do in the fall. With, I know that's another level, but I feel like it's sort of better, as we've learned from this, to better plan than just not think about it. So this handout that is on, what I did is I broke it up into 3 slides. This is a poster that's available free from CDC, and it talks about how to protect yourself and others. And it reviews basically first how the virus is spread. And as you know, it's spread between people who are in close contact with one another, and we consider close contact within 6 feet, through respiratory droplets, when somebody sneezes or coughs or talks. And the scary thing is that some people that have the virus that do not have symptoms, we don't know we have symptoms, we're not showing symptoms, but we have the virus, we could spread it, not knowing. And that's where, why the social distancing and the use of face coverings is recommended. So what everybody should do to, again, help spread the virus is clean our hands frequently. And that's where I think everybody is encouraging that. And when we look at back to school, kids hopefully are going to be encouraged to wash their hands more. Using, if soap and water isn't available, then using a hand sanitizer, and then trying to avoid touching, obviously, your face. So in case your hands were dirty. Avoiding close contact. If you're sick, staying home. And then covering your mouth and nose with a face cover is what's recommended. And how this poster really reminds us, it's a face covering. It does not replace the social distancing. It's just an extra protection. And as we've discussed in the past, my face mask protects you. You wearing a face mask protects me. If we're next, you know, if we're within, you know, if we're together. Avoiding cough and sneezes, and cleaning and disinfecting. So these are the key things. And I just wanted to make sure everyone knows that there are, if your school district is looking for face coverings for their staff, FEMA and the Health and Human Services is providing free face masks in 500 masks per carton. So I had sent this out on Lunchline earlier this week, but I'll make sure I send it out again. So if you're needing face masks, you can get them free from the government, basically, or FEMA, whatever that is. I think it's government. There are also posters available to, you know, on guidance on face coverings. So just wanted to remind people about that in case you're looking for information. We have about a minute. Is there any other questions or anything you'd like to have information on? Let's see. I was gonna stop sharing my screen. Okay, it looks like Danielle Anderson's email is in the chat, and we can make sure we put that in the follow-up. Jenny Martini stated that emergency grants are open right now, mostly for the summer food service program needs. So if you're running a summer food service program and you need some funds to help you do that, especially if you're new, please contact No Kid Hungry. But if you're also preparing for the fall, you can reach out to them also. Are there any other questions? Okay, anybody have any that they want to voice if you have a microphone or anything? Okay, well, it's 2 o'clock, so we want to be respectful of your time. Thank you so much for joining today. In the follow-up message, we'll make sure we put the link to the website where you can get these checklists. And if you find that we've forgotten things, or if you have some other ideas, please let us know. These are just, again, like Molly said, meant to, there's not requirements, they're just guidance to try to help you think of things that you want to consider for your opening back to school. And I know many of you may be on School Meals That Rock and Tips for School Meals That Rock on Facebook. I know Dale Hayes and a colleague from Cincinnati Public Schools is putting together a guide. So they're going to be getting guidance from all over the nation that will make sure that if we see that, when it's out, we will make sure we share that because there may be some really good ideas from across the nation. The only other thing I guess I wanted to, I just realized to show you is if you're looking for menu ideas for the vegetable subgroups, I wanted to remind you guys, because I think Kansas, I just remember when they developed these lunch cycles, I think they made sure that the, this is a 4-week fall lunch menu. I think they made sure, they even have production records, purchasing guide. I think they made sure that the vegetable subgroups were met. So these might be helpful to us. Let's see if you can you still see my screen with this Word document coming up?
We can't see the Word document, Katie, just the internet.
Okay, let me do it again then. Sorry. This is where it's, okay. Here we go. Here it is. I'll share it again. Okay, this is where week 1, I'm just going to look at the menu. I thought there was a menu somewhere. Must have pulled up production records.
It looks like you're in the recipes to me. Oh, maybe just scroll way down.
There's the menu for the week. Okay, so I thought they also made sure that the vegetable subgroups, that they've got broccoli, they got white potatoes, they got spinach, no, romaine lettuce, tomato slices. I want to see if they have a legume. Yeah, there's your refried beans, taco salad, carrots. So I do think if you're looking for guidance on just making sure the vegetable subgroups are met, this menu guide might help you, just give you ideas. I really think you guys can do it because you're so used to doing the subgroups now. And maybe next week we'll bring up the meal pattern for the vegetable subgroups. You'll see that it's not that much. I think a lot of times when you offer a salad bar, you're giving so much more than the minimum that I think in looking at the minimum, I know you can do it. So anyway, we'll go over some more ideas on that next week because I know that's a real concern. Any other questions or anything? I'm sorry to keep you. Okay, well, thank you for joining us today, and stay well.